Hi guys, welcome to Facebook Live. I'm your host, Rose.
And I'm your host, Lauren.
And today we're going to be going over how to get ahead on your career path, which is pretty much something we all need sometimes. So don't forget to like and share this or tag people that you know that maybe need to try to get ahead on their career path. But we're going to be looking over a whole bunch of fun stuff today. Before we jump in, Lauren, do you mind going over a little bit of the do's and don'ts?
Sure. So as Rose mentioned, today we'll be talking about how to get ahead on your career path. So we'll go over tips for resume building, volunteerism, jobs and internships, and networking. If you have any friends who might be interested in those topics, please feel free to tag them below or share it to your own profile with them. If you have any questions or comments on those topics, please drop those below. But do not put any of your personal information in the comments because, of course, that's public. But we're happy to talk to you if you need any like one-on-one help where you would have to give more personal information. You can send us a direct message right to this page. If you're a current student, you can also call us at Student Services. The number is 1-888-427-1000. If you are not a student but are thinking about it and want to know more about our programs and what might be right for you, you can give our admissions team a call at 1-888-427-6500, and we'll talk through all of your questions one-on-one with you.
So our backstage buddy Des is going to be dropping a lot of really good links in the comments. So if you need to dig a little bit deeper into anything we're going to be going over today, keep an eye out in the comments for those. There's going to be blogs like 5 tips for online interview success, how to become a freelancer, how to prepare for a new career, what is the high school diploma and what are career pathways, 3 steps to interview like a boss, and the what, why, and how of building your personal brand, all very important stuff. So keep an eye out for those in the comments, and then you could do a little bit of your own research on the side as well. So we're going to be getting into, like Lauren said, resume building, volunteerism, jobs and internships, and networking. So Lauren, let's start with resume building. I think that's a really good thing to build upon. What are some of your favorite tips for resume building?
That's a good question. So I'll start by saying, especially if you're a high school student or if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of maybe like work experience outside of your education, you might be thinking, where do I even start? Like, what do I put on this? I don't have a ton of experience. But remember that everything you do does count as experience. So I would start off by thinking about your education. Make sure you put that on there. List out skills that you're learning with your education. So if you are in a medical billing and coding program, list out the skills that you're learning in that program to showcase that you really know what you're talking about, and list out a couple of areas where you have a little bit more interest or knowledge. And that's something that maybe then when you're getting interviewed, you can talk through a little bit more since it'll already be on your resume. That might trigger some questions in an interview. If you have any academic or extracurricular achievements, like if you're in any community clubs, if you play any community athletics, if you hold any leadership roles in anything, that is resume gold. Definitely put that on there. Any jobs that you have, even if the job maybe isn't perfectly aligned to what you're applying to, if you don't have a ton of other job experience that is more aligned, put that on there and then just list out the skills that would apply to the job that you're kind of going for.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you're acquiring skills in pretty much everything that you do.
Yeah.
And just because maybe if you're acquiring skills in bookkeeping and you wanted to go into vet tech or whatever way you're crossing into a different career path or maybe starting fresh, you still do have skills that will apply to whatever you want to do next. You just have to really think about it and think about what you're good at, what you've done in the past. Volunteerism, like Lauren said, even things like babysitting jobs shows responsibility, you know, if you're young and coming out of high school, and keeping all those things in mind and how you can use those to promote yourself, because that's really what a resume does. You're writing down key features of who you are as a person and why an employer would want you, and you need to promote yourself, which is always a little uncomfortable. But if you get creative and just know that everybody does it, it's a lot easier of a process.
Yeah, and your resume and your cover letter are good opportunities to kind of tell the story about yourself and your experience. So like even in Rose's babysitting example, if you have some babysitting experience and you're applying to a job as say like a home health aide, you can talk about how you spent time caring about another person. You were organized, you knew about their needs, and when certain needs or tasks would need to occur, and you were on top of that stuff. So you can use the description underneath your experience or your cover letter to talk about why that job is relevant to the position that you're applying for. It also helps to have references, because if your references are called, then they can tell a good story about you too and talk up your knowledge and your work ethic and your experience, and really help you get that job.
References I would put at the end of a resume, though. So typically with resume building, I think you want to put some really big, awesome skills up at the top, so that when somebody's scanning over it, they can quickly, a hiring manager doesn't have a lot of time. So they're going to want to scan over your resume and see what stands out. So you want those skills, what you're really good at, up at the top. Then as you go down some work experience, I definitely wouldn't go by past 10 years in the past, because people don't want to read over a novel. They just want to see how today, what applies to the job that you're applying for, not necessarily what you did 11 years ago. Education down towards the bottom. If you are currently a Penn Foster student, you can still add your education. You don't have to wait to be completed. You could still add that. Just put that you're attending. And then below that, I would do references.
Yes, like kind of in order of importance of what you want that potential employer to see and notice first as it relates to the job. And that points to another thing too, which is now a lot of job applications that you might be submitting a resume is they're not paper resumes or paper applications. You are applying online. So with that, I think it's a good idea to look up some helpful keywords in the job description and make sure that your resume includes those and your cover letter includes those, so that if their HR team is using any kind of like software to sift through applications, yours will stand out. And then, with that, we talk about being on LinkedIn a lot. I think that's really important too, because that's another place where you can optimize keywords that are relevant to jobs you're applying for. And if a hiring manager is really invested in your resume and they want to know more about you, that's a great place where they can get to know the more professional side of you.
Right. And don't forget, even if you have some really great skills that don't necessarily apply, the hiring manager is looking to fill that role. So when they have a job description, they're putting up what skills they want to see. Use those skills and put that onto your resume, because that's what they're looking for. That's what they want. So make sure if there's anything that says, detail oriented, and you're detail oriented, make sure that gets onto your resume, and don't try to necessarily a lot of cool synonyms. Just, let them see what they're looking for, because it's going to make their life go more, it's going to go faster for them. Also, if there's any AI or software programs that are scanning for keywords, you want to make sure you're including them, like Lauren said. And it's kind of easier for you too, so you might as well, write down what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And then with that too, if they are looking for any specific credentials or education or knowledge, it's definitely helpful, again, to mention, but then if there are any certificates that you've earned, that is amazing to include on your resume. It shows that you're taking your education seriously. You always want to know the most up-to-date information about your industry. You're interested in learning skills that maybe aren't 100% in line with what the job is, but could help you do that job even better and help you stand out even more. So, and if you are looking to get more skills or more certificates and credentials, that is what we're here for at Penn Foster. So give our admissions team a call, and we can definitely help you enroll in a program to get a few more of those on your resume and give that a little extra boost.
Yeah, one of the things that we do at Penn Foster is we are looking out to see what employers want, what fields are opening up, where the jobs are, and we do try to put a focus on those opportunities with their programs. So talk to an admissions specialist if you have any questions about, things employers are looking for, and maybe they can guide you through what could help your resume. That might be something quicker than an associate degree. It might be something like we had touched on a previous Facebook Live, maybe just a quick certificate or, a 3-month career diploma or something like that that can give you a big boost. But on the thought of big boosts, Lauren, I'd like to jump into a little bit of volunteerism. Volunteerism is one of those things that it seems like it doesn't have a lot of value. It actually has an absolute ton of value. So if you are fresh out of school, or you're thinking of you're nearly a graduate, or if you're just currently in school, you're currently taking a Penn Foster program, and you're like, how am I going to find a job immediately following this? Even if I have the education, how do I find the experience to get in the door somewhere? This is where volunteerism really comes in handy. It's almost like an unpaid internship, if you think of it that way. But it also shows employers a lot of different skills. It shows that you care, you're responsible for things, that you have a charitable nature, that you're a good fit for their company and for their culture. Everybody likes people that volunteer because it's just from a really warm and wonderful place. But also you can volunteer at things you have an interest in. So say you want to be a vet tech. You don't know how you're going to get a veterinary technician job as soon as you're finished with Penn Foster. So you could be volunteering in veterinary services. So you could be volunteering at animal shelters or even local veterinarians' offices that might need a little, a hand. If there's large animal training that you could do, like say you work at a horse farm or something like that, all of those things. If you're volunteering, you're still getting that valuable experience. You might not be getting paid, but it's pretty darn close to the experience of having a 9-to-5 job. So definitely utilize that to your advantage. And it only has to be like, a couple of hours on a Saturday kind of thing.
Yeah. And Rose, to touch on that point you made a little bit, I think it's a great opportunity too, if you're somebody who doesn't have a ton of work experience and you're somebody who might not be necessarily qualified at the moment for the job that you want. Volunteering is a great way to get your foot in the door, to get some experience that has at least relevant skills to what you want to do, to showcase that you do have experience with those skills, even if it's not in the exact job or industry that you want to be in. But sometimes, like in Rose's vet tech example, it could be in the industry that you want to be in. So it's definitely worth looking.
Yeah, I think employers also, if they come down to 2 resumes and they have, this kind of the same credentials and one has more volunteer work on it, they're more likely going to go with the resume that has the volunteer work on it because it just shows character. Mm-hmm. It shows a lot about a person's personality that they would be willing to volunteer. And I think it's a more comfortable choice for an employer when they bring somebody on board, because whenever an employer hires somebody, it's an expense for them. It could potentially throw off the whole balance of a team. If you bring that wrong person on, it is a lot of pressure for an employer. So seeing things like volunteerism can really be what, turns the needle for an employer to say, I think this person's a better fit. So
yeah, it shows that you're hardworking, you're motivated, and you're dedicated. And like Rose said, like anytime a company hires somebody, it's a gamble because you don't know if they're going to be meshing with the team well. You don't know if they're going to be somebody who can work independently or follow through on their assignments and do their work with 100% care put into what they're doing in each and every task. But if you're literally giving your time for free to help people or help your community, then I think that could help really ease some of those worries for employers, because they know that you are somebody who's going to be motivated to do a good job just because that's what you do. And it's not just the pay that's an incentive, although obviously pay is a great incentive.
Right. But also, a major perk of volunteerism is it feels darn good. It feels great to volunteer. It feels great to help somebody. It feels great to walk dogs and, all of that stuff that is involved with different types of volunteering. But of course, like home health aide, you could volunteer at a nursing home. There's plenty of different ways you could try to make it incorporate directly with what you plan on doing in the future. But any kind of volunteerism is going to give you that boost on a resume. Mm-hmm. So it can be an interest.
And kind of it's definitely not volunteerism, but kind of like another step to that, which would be internships. I think that's an important thing to think about too, if you're somebody who's really, working on your career path. Sometimes internships and externships are paid, sometimes they are not, but they are amazing ways to get relevant experience in your field and with what you're doing. It's also super, super helpful for building connections. So we see a lot of graduates who did an internship or an externship. They crushed it where they were. They made great connections with their bosses and their coworkers at that internship. And then they got hired there after they graduated, and they had the relevant education and skills and degree to do that job and any other credentials that they would need or certifications. So those are, if you work in an industry that does have popular internships or externships or ways that you can get experience without being a full-time hire, that is an amazing thing you can do for your resume.
Mm-hmm, it's true. Even at Penn Foster, there's a lot of people who work at Penn Foster that started off on internships. It's a great way to get your foot in the door somewhere. Like Lauren was saying, like different animal hospitals that are our partners, a lot of times we set up some externships and people will end up down the road getting employed there. And it's a really great way to get your foot in the door. An internship interview, a lot of companies will have open positions for internships. A lot of companies kind of rely on internships because it works well for them, because it helps. It's an extra hand, really, that can help them. So the interviews are a little bit lower stakes usually, but you still need that professional touch, a little bit more than maybe say volunteerism, because now you're really getting into the professional arena of what your career track is. So you're going to want to sharpen those interview skills before an interview. You want to show up the best because you might be competing for an internship role. So you don't want to roll in there just like it's going to be given to you. You want to make sure that you are doing your best. You put your best foot forward. And
Rose, what are some good tips for interviewing for an internship or just in general while we're on this topic?
So I would say I've always heard the tip, dress for the job you want or dress like the job you want. Obviously, I wouldn't show up in scrubs if you want to be a medical assistant, but, dressing professionally, making sure that you just spend a little bit of extra time on your appearance. It sounds shallow, but it isn't shallow. It's the same idea of that volunteerism. It's taking pride in yourself, taking a little bit of extra time to show somebody else that you respect them. You put yourself together because you were going to be sitting with them, having a conversation with them, and you respect them. So making sure to dress appropriately, I think, is the number one of the easiest things you could do for an interview. Is just make sure your shirt's ironed, you're put together, you're not wearing jeans. As much as it pains me to say that, because I am a denim girl, just making sure that you look very professional. And if you need help for figuring out what professional means for the role that you are applying for that internship, just Google it. Just be like, what should I wear to a medical assistant internship interview? And there's a lot of resources on the internet of what people suggest and how to put together a good outfit if that's not really your thing, how to look well-groomed.
Also, I will say, once you do land an internship, continue to dress professionally throughout that internship. I think that I've worked in jobs where I've seen interns that I think just kind of feel like, oh, well, everyone knows I'm a student. I can dress how I want to, but I can promise you people notice that you're not dressed appropriately. They will talk about it, and that will hurt your chances of getting hired there if that's a place that you want to get hired. And obviously, some work environments dress more casually, and that's fine, but just make sure that you're dressing kind of on par with your coworkers, and don't think like, oh, I'm just an intern, I can do my thing. No, dress like you work there.
It sounds silly, but employers really want to see that you want the job. They just want to know, like, do you want to be here? So the way that you dress portrays like, I want to be here. I want to continue to be here. I would love to be hired full time. So definitely, and it all sounds kind of silly, in today's world that it's like, oh, iron our shirt, whatever. But it really does make a difference to somebody who's trying to pick out the best people for their team. And they want to see the people who are going a little bit above and beyond. So make sure to just keep on top of that. It can make a big difference. And it's one of those first impression things that you can't really take back. So when you have your first interview, the way that you walk into the room and how you present yourself is going to stick in the mind of the employer. It might be the number one thing that they think of when they're going back over the resume stack to see who they're going to eventually hire. So just keep that tip in mind. It's an easy thing you have control over. And why not stick to the things that you know for sure you have control over? Because it gets a little bit trickier in an interview when you start getting hit with questions and there's a little bit less control. But we have ways that we can prepare for that too. So one of the first ways I would say is tip number 2, study a little bit on the job that you're applying for the internship with. Learn a little bit about the company, show that you have some interest. It's kind of like a first date, it's like you want to appear like you're not there and you're bored and you're wasting time. You want to be engaged. You want to have some interesting information to bring to the table, and also, be interested in who you're spending time with at that moment. So studying the position and the company, explore the company's website if they have one. If it's a small town kind of business, maybe ask some people that may have worked there in the past, or if anyone who knows anyone who's worked there, to get a little bit more information. But even just some information that you can get online out of like whitepages.com would even help. You want to know a little bit about the company you're walking into.
Yeah, I think this is so important because I've seen, I think, a huge turnoff is if you get asked about the company or what you will bring to the role, or anything that's more specific to the exact job you're interviewing for, or what you will bring to the exact company you're interviewing for. And it'll always be obvious to the hiring manager when you don't know what you're talking about in terms of what they do or what the role is. And that will immediately send the signal that you don't care about the job and you're not prepared. So I think that this is a huge area where you can make or break an interview, because if you just put in the time to get some information, to understand what the company is all about, what the job is all about, and you can show that you cared enough to take the time to do that, and you care enough about the position that you have something to say about what you'll bring to the role, that could really be a huge positive for you. But it could really work against you if you try to wing it and you're clearly misspeaking about what the company or the job is all about.
And make sure you know why you want to work there, because they're going to ask you why you want an internship, have an internship there versus somewhere else. Or, they're really tracking your enthusiasm. So make sure you have a good answer for, why do you want an internship here? You probably don't want to say, oh, I want the experience so I can put it on a resume and leave immediately. You want to have more to back it. I have a lot of interest in this company, or, I've heard great things about this small business and I see what you do for the community and I want to be a part of that. Things along those lines that just show a little bit extra will help you get the internship. And sure. Lauren, what do you think is a very big thing to do before an interview?
Practice. I think if you have a friend or a parent or someone that who you can trust, who can ask you a couple mock interview questions, and they will give you honest feedback. Pick somebody that you're able to hear honest feedback from, because that can be difficult. But, Google common interview questions, like be prepared to answer, like, what are your top 3 strengths and weaknesses? That weaknesses question is hard to answer.
Yep. So and they're going to ask. They're going to ask what you think your biggest weakness is, because they always do.
Always do. They want to catch you off guard and see how you handle those trickier situations, or questions like, how have you resolved conflict in the past? That's always so hard to answer. So you want to be prepared for those.
Why did you leave your last job? Why are you switching career paths? Those are always big questions, because if you left your last job because something that might happen at the current job, it's going to be a big red flag. So you want to have a good answer for why you left your last job, why you're switching career paths. If you're like, it was too much work, it was too many hours, then when you're going in an internship or interview, it might be like, oh, well, this is going to require a lot of hours too.
Huge red flag.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that you have answers that aren't going to, you got to play chess a little bit. Think 2 steps ahead of what the employer wants you to say, especially when you're talking about, why you're leaving what you are leaving, whether it's a career path or a previous job.
Yeah, and that's why it could really help to practice with somebody that because they can put themselves in the mindset of the interviewer. So if you start to get into bashing your previous company or talking about that you don't like to work more hours or just things that aren't going to sound great, that other person can tell you, ooh, if I was a hiring manager, I would not like that. You just said that.
Even if it's super true. That's the thing. They don't know you well enough. So even if it's extremely true and very transparent, they don't know how to read it. They don't know if they are reading it as you're just somebody who likes to complain, or if you actually had a terrible experience, but it's probably not the place to introduce that yet anyway. So try to be graceful in your answers. Don't put anybody under the bus ever. It's just not a good reflection of your own character, and stay positive. And worst comes to worst, just make sure you put a smile on your face, because that'll go a long way if you don't have the right answers.
Yeah, make eye contact with the person that is interviewing you and try to establish that connection. I think a big thing to remember too is people want to hire people who they want to work with. So if you can develop a connection with the person that's interviewing you through your body language, like making eye contact, smiling, showing interest in the person that you're talking to, and being fully invested in that conversation, that's a good sign to them that you'll be somebody that they will want to have around their workspace.
A very silly but effective confidence tip is, if you can, before going into an interview, if there's a bathroom or somewhere that's private, do big body stretches and make your body big and just stretch it out, because you will get so tense. Everything will feel smaller when you walk into a room if you're not feeling confident. So get yourself stretched out. It might just be 2 minutes of a power pose. Find your power, take some deep, slow breaths, balance your breathing, and then go in there. And it'll make a huge difference to your first impression. Internships, I think a lot of employers are kind of expecting the nerves to be sky high. But if you can walk in there like you're already the boss a little bit, not overly confident though. You don't want to seem like you are the boss, but that you have leadership qualities and you're confident and you've got this and you're confident in your skills and who you are, that can go a long way. So it sounds silly, but just physical stretching somewhere can help.
And these tips don't just apply. I know we were talking a little bit about internships and externships, and definitely these tips apply to those interviews and those situations, but a lot of this advice can apply to any job interview that you have. And like Rose said, like even appearing confident, like no employer, whether you're an intern or whether you're going to be the boss, wants to have somebody that is going to need a lot of hand holding or isn't confident about the work they do. So it is important to show that you're going to take ownership of your job, whatever your job is, and that you'll be somebody who's really committed to performing your job duties to the best of your abilities.
Lauren, this next piece, I feel like you always have such great advice on, which is the networking piece. I would love to hear some of your tips on networking. I know you always have the greatest insight to LinkedIn, and I love when you explain why LinkedIn is important, because you're always right about it. It is a very good place. Employers are going to go looking for your LinkedIn, no matter if it's a small town job or it's a big corporate national position. They're going to want to see that. So Lauren, what are some of your networking tips?
Well, just to talk about what you were just mentioning, Rose, like think for all of you guys watching, like if there's a new person that you're interested in romantically or a new friend that you're interested in learning more about, what's the first thing you do?
You look them up on Facebook.
Look them up on social media. Yes. So that's what employers are doing too. Like employers are people just like us, and they want to know who they're meeting, what you're all about. They want to see if there are any red flags. They want to see if there's anything that they can relate to you on. So you're going to get Googled. You're going to be looked up online. Just know that is going to happen. So just like step number one is your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter. Unless you're catering those profiles, like some people do have more professional Twitter accounts or Instagram accounts where they only post about their professional accomplishments. They post about the industry that they're in. Great. But if you're like most people who just use those accounts to post about your personal life or to be silly, or to express especially like more controversial opinions, set those to private literally right now if you're somebody who's applying to jobs. As you get
They
to
should
know
be
your
private really anyway, I think.
Right.
You know, just it makes your life easier down the road.
Yeah.
So set it to private. You can always Google search like, how do I make my settings more private? Because it's pretty intensive. In some of the account settings on social media, it's like a lot of different things you have to click. So there are resources online to figure out how to make your account more private, and I highly suggest it. You get to keep your private life, and everybody else gets to stay out of it, which is a major bonus. Yeah. But also you have that safeguard from employers.
For sure. And if you get hired at this company and down the road you make really good friends with your coworkers and you know that they are similar to you and you can trust them, then, you know, you can add them. I think that's fine if you develop that mutual trust, but you definitely don't want to go in just like blazing into your interview with all that information about yourself out there. Let them get to know the professional you before they know all of that other stuff, because that's the side of yourself that you want to be presenting. So LinkedIn, to Rose's point, is a great social media platform to really best represent the professional side of you. So not only is that kind of a great like second resume where employers can look you up, potential employers can look you up and learn more about your awards you've received, some volunteerism, your experience, your education, but you can post on LinkedIn, you know, thoughts on things that are happening in your industry. You can post about accomplishments related to your profession or your work. So it's just a great place to be for that reason. And to get into the networking reason, I think that for LinkedIn, it's totally okay to add connections who you don't know personally. Of course, that's another reason why you don't want to be sharing like crazy private information if you're going to be connecting with essentially strangers. But I think, you know, first step for LinkedIn is make sure you're connected to anybody who previously worked with, anybody who volunteered with. Then if there are companies that you're applying to, add people who work at those companies as your connections and let them see every accomplishment that you share about. Let them see that you're thoughtful about what's going on in the industry. It's just a great way to make sure that then when you apply, they're going to be like, oh, I know Rose. I've seen her on LinkedIn. She has some really great insight that she likes to share. So they'll already know a little bit about what you do professionally. Add people who you admire professionally. That way you can see what they're posting, get their insights, see what they're up to. So it's just a great way to build those more professional connections and really show off your work accomplishments in a way that would be super weird to do on Facebook. Not that you shouldn't get to brag about your career on other social media platforms, but it's just not really designed to be a space for that, whereas LinkedIn is designed to be a space for that. And if you add recruiters or hiring managers on LinkedIn and they are hiring somebody like you might get messaged on LinkedIn. It happens from time to time, where if your profile is amazing and your experience is amazing and you're connected to the right people, they might call you out and say, hey, we have a job open. Are you interested? And then send you a direct link to apply. And then you know that they have their eyes on you. So that's like the best situation you could be in.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that a lot of times, you know, we think of it as it's hard to find jobs. It's hard to get into a job. But a lot of times hiring managers are having a hard time finding people to fill those roles. So they're out there just scanning, looking to see, oh, like we've been interviewing this person. We've been interviewing for this role and we're not finding the right person. Let me do get ahead of it, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and find who I want, and I'm going to offer them a job, even if they're in a role. So always make yourself, create that opportunity for yourself on LinkedIn. It's just a really easy way to network. It doesn't take much to set up a LinkedIn account. And don't forget, nice professional picture. Have a friend look over your LinkedIn page and let them know, ask for their feedback on if you look professional. And of course, there's somebody that's working in a role that you want to eventually be in someday. Look at their LinkedIn, see how they have it organized, and just take some of those tips on how to organize a LinkedIn from them, from the pages that you admire the most.
Yeah. And then on LinkedIn and in real life, it's great to stay connected to people who work at companies or work in jobs that you might want to have, because if their company has openings, they might typically post on LinkedIn, or you might, even if it's not on LinkedIn in real life, you want to make sure that you stay in their mind as somebody who would be interested to know when positions are popping up. And a lot of times people do get referral bonuses for referring new employees. So they probably want to refer you to the job just as much as you want them to refer you to the job. So it works out both ways to stay connected to the right people.
Another good thing is, if you are interviewing, don't forget, like, if you don't get a job, it doesn't mean that the interview is any kind of a failure or that door is closed. You met somebody that now knows what your skills are, that works in a company that's definitely going to have open positions down the road. Just about every company does. So if you make a good impression on an interview, even if you don't get that particular role, you're going to stand out in the mind of that hiring manager. They're always going to know that you're there in the back of their heads. They're going to have your resume in their resume pile. So you want to make sure that you are taking lots of interviews, getting lots of practice, getting seen, doing as well as you can, but also knowing that that interview might not end in a job today, but it might open the door for another job with that company in the future. So it's fun networking tips that you have a lot of control over.
Yeah. And with freelancing, that could be another way to kind of network and slowly get yourself into future, more full-time permanent jobs if that's something that you want. If you have a career where you could freelance or do small jobs here and there, you never know what company is eventually going to be like, this person's amazing, let's hire them full-time, or let's contract with them enough that they can pay you more of a full-time salary. So that's another great thing to consider, and you'll make money while you network, which is amazing too.
Also, while we were talking about volunteer work, or we talked about all the benefits of volunteer work and how employers see that, but usually when you're volunteering, you're making friends, you're expanding your network. If you're volunteering in an area that is, eventually where you want your career path to go, you're making connections with people who have their own connections in that career path. So it's another open door through volunteerism to expand the network and increase your odds of getting a job by just knowing more people. There's a fun piece. So Lauren, I feel like this has your name all over it. Building a brand.
You too, Rose.
I feel like you're really good at building a brand and explaining what it is to consider yourself as a brand. Can you explain a little bit to everybody watching, like, what that means?
Well, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier when we were talking about, if you have a Twitter account that's like more about you as a professional, or if you have an Instagram account that's more about you as a professional. It's really just thinking about, I'm trying to think about how to phrase this, like how to, in an honest and genuine way, carve out the part of yourself that is who you are in your field or in your profession, and really thinking about how to optimize that side of yourself and best present that side of yourself. I
would say one of the weird things about applying for jobs, like what you were saying earlier about social media and how when you first meet an employer, you introduce yourself as the professional version of yourself. And then as you work there for a long time, they get to know you, it becomes more personal. It gets a little bit more multifaceted. But that original appearance, your professional persona, that first person that a hiring manager would meet before they, uncover all these different layers to what makes you eventually down the road. I feel like that really is where you want to focus yourself as a brand and like promoting yourself as a brand. Like when we think of brands, what do we think of? We think of like Nike, Coca-Cola. We think of things that, Coca-Cola, you could see the color red and just know it's that Coca-Cola red. You want to tailor yourself to fit into this professional version of yourself, because basically when you're looking for a job and you're working in the business world, you kind of are a brand, and you do need to promote yourself as you are a package of skills that people want, and you need to have a little bit of a streamlined kind of a appearance, but it goes deeper than that, to what you are selling and how you are selling yourself and your skills.
Yeah, I think that was a great way to phrase all of that. And to go off of some of what you said, like being consistent about what so say you are a vet tech. What about being a vet tech matters to you most? What are you best at? What do you care about in the industry and, your job? And how do you want to talk about those things? And then be consistent when you're telling your story. Go back to those big core values or attributes that you really want to talk about the most, and make sure that your stories also always circle back to those things. And then, make sure you're walking the talk with those things too. So if you say you are somebody who's really passionate about educating clients on pet insurance, as an example, when you're in an interview or on LinkedIn or whatever, talk about how you have done that and show examples of that. And that's a great way to start thinking about how to build that personal brand.
Yeah, I think it's really, if you took Facebook and you took LinkedIn, you should be sharing articles about your career path. It's professional. So you're going to be looking into different industry trends and things like that, where you could share those things on LinkedIn, where maybe it would just be like, why is she sharing this so much on Facebook? Facebook's so much more personal. You're sharing memes, you're sharing recipes, ideas. It's like the whole you. But for the personal brand, you want to think of the professional you. So it's kind of like what you would share on LinkedIn versus what you would share on Facebook are such very, very different things. So streamlining who you are professionally, who you want to be professionally, who you look up to, taking all those tidbits of information and incorporating them into who you are as your own personal brand. And that will help you make a really great impression professionally, and also get noticed. You might be looking for this one job right now, but you have a big career ahead of you. And if you are in a place like LinkedIn, or if you're in a town that has an industry where a lot of the different companies talk amongst themselves, and you make an impression in those areas, you just want to make sure that you have everything tied a little bit with a bow. And this is another great place. We have a blog about it. Des can share it in the comments. It's a great thing to look over, because it's one of those things I think we easily look past, because we are all such interesting, in-depth people that have so many different things that we love. It's hard to think about streamlining it into one brand the way we think of how brands work. But you could still be all those amazing things and portray something that's consistent, reliable. It's eye-catching. You might, you make an impression everywhere you go. You're memorable. Like, these are things that you want on the career path. So make sure to read that blog, as well as all of the other blogs that we've gone over here today, which are a whole bunch. If you're thinking about enrolling, once again, our phone number is 1-888-427-6500. If you want to talk to an admissions specialist, different ways you could boost your career path, or any career ideas, or you just need someone to talk to about what the heck should I do with my life, give us a call. And if you're a student and you need help with an exam, or if you need help with a payment or any of that, student services is open. 1-888-427-1000. Give us a call. We're here for you guys. But I think this is a really great talk. Yeah. And I hope you guys all get your resumes all nice and shiny, and you practice those interviews with your friends and you work on all those tough interview questions that you Google and you look up and you know your weaknesses. And when you are in that interview, you nail it, you get the internship, you get the experience, your resume looks better, and it can all just unfold.
And guys, as you're making progress in your career paths, post about it, share, let us know. We love seeing what you're all up to, and we love giving you guys shout outs and sharing what you're up to. So don't be shy, because we do love to see it.
Such a great point too. We do student stories, we do student interviews. If you're interested, send us a direct message. We sometimes share that stuff on our LinkedIn, and then you could share that again, and it could be like, look at me, I'm being featured, like, check this out, employers, I'm amazing. So that comes in handy. Also, we do awards. We have Graduate of the Year coming up. You might get an email about the yearbook. Look into that. You might have gotten a special invitation to apply for Graduate of the Year.
That's if you are a graduate. So if you haven't yet, that would be why you're not getting that email, just so you know.
Right. Also, I think there's a time frame from when you graduated for the year. But also, we have volunteerism awards. We have different awards through the year. Keep your eye out for the emails. Keep your eye on social. This stuff can really help your resume, and it's not a very heavy lift for you. Like, you might just have to write an essay to tell us about your experience, and that's all it could take for you to win sometimes a nationally recognized award. So pay attention. We can help.
Yes.
We're here for you.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today and talking with us about how to get ahead on your career path. We always love these discussions with you guys. So stay tuned for the next one. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.